Hey everyone. Many of you will be aware that there's a debate coming up this weekend between Daniel Haqiqatjou and Javid Hashmi. Now, they're going to be talking about a range of topics, which I think will include things like child marriage. Most of you will know Daniel Haqiqatjou. He is the Salafi sadist that has become notorious for his promotion of child marriage. But the guy on the left, Javid Hashmi, is probably less well known to most people. Now, I thought it'd be helpful for anyone who's going to watch that debate just to give you a bit of background information on this guy, because in this debate, he's going to appear to be the moderate, and certainly compared to Daniel Haqiqatjou, he is a moderate, but he's not necessarily as moderate as he might seem. I also want to do, at the end of this video, just as a bit of fun, make some predictions for what's exactly going to happen in the debate, because unfortunately I'm not going to be able to watch it. I've got something else on. The first thing that you need to know about Javid is that he's not actually a doctor. Now, he's going to be introduced as a doctor, and he is a medical doctor, but he uses his title in a way to imply that he has a doctorate in Islamic studies, which he does not. Now, doesn't mean that he doesn't have a great deal of knowledge. He has earned degrees and stuff in Arabic and Islamic studies, as you can see from his channel. But there is something dishonest about implying that you have a doctorate in Islamic studies when really your title of doctor is only because you're a medical doctor, like Zakir Naik. So it might seem like a small thing, but I just think it does speak to somebody's integrity when they try and pass themselves off as something that they're not, or imply a greater expertise than they actually have. Now, the other thing is that he works for MPAC, which is the Muslim Public Affairs Council, which is essentially an advocacy body in America. I'm looking at the second half of the paragraph. We also provide media analysis and messaging strategies to reporters and media professionals to inform public opinion and advise the entertainment industry on creating more humanizing and nuanced portrayals of Muslims and Islam. So, regardless of whether this organization is good or bad, or whether it's honest in its dealings or not, I honestly don't know. It is essentially a public relations organization. It is there to create the best possible image for Muslims. So whether that is an accurate image or not, the point is that he's got a vested interest in trying to portray Muslims to non-Muslims in the best possible light. So you have to be cautious about the things that he says. The next thing I want to show you is this is a conversation which I've previously done a video on with Javid and Dr. Joshua Little, he is an atheist, former critic of Islam, and now a Islamophile, it seems. And he's done some studies on the child marriage hadiths as they relate to Aisha. Now, Joshua Little has done some research on this and thinks that the hadiths are fabricated, and Javid agrees with him. But I want to show you this part of the conversation because Javid is playing an interesting kind of have your cake and eat it over the issue of child marriage. It's a little bit worrying, so I'm just going to play it just so you can see.
Even if Aisha ended up being 9 years old, I feel like there is some justification that I know some, traditionalists, including in the academy, who say, well, the prophet still wouldn't have been a pedophile, right? I mean, so it's not necessary from an academic perspective or somebody who's aware of, who's not a new atheist, let me put it that way.
Right, so you see what he's doing there? He's basically saying that, right, okay, this hadith was fabricated. Aisha wasn't 9 years old. But if she was, then it's still not really an issue. Because Muhammad isn't technically a paedophile. So to me, that's worrying because he's basically playing a game of, well, I don't want to believe it. And hopefully I've got this guy here who's going to confirm it's not true. But if it is true, I'm still not going to condemn Muhammad. And I find that troubling because you basically just, in a way, he's still sitting on the fence. He's not going to condemn it. So I think that needs to be known.
I mean, I know that I went through my...
Right, this second clip that I want to show you is just to show the background also, that Javid does have a past as a fundamentalist. Now, he doesn't go much into the details of it, but it's just worth watching to show that he does have a background before his current position of being kind of more of a moderate reformist type. So I'm just going to quickly play this.
Fundamentalist phase in my 20s. I would say though that my I don't want to say radicalization because I was never radical, but I was more on the fundamentalist side. But my conversion back to sanity was a very gradual process. It took another almost half decade or more for that to happen.
Right. So I would just say that again, I'm not trying to demonize him or say that means that his current position is suspect for that reason. But I'm just saying he was not always what he is claiming to be now, which is a moderate. He clearly has a background in more fundamentalist Islam. So whether that means he was an Islamist, whether that means he was supporting all sorts of disturbing things, who knows? But the point is he does have that background, and I would question how far he's moved. He's certainly nowhere near as bad as somebody like Daniel Haqiqatjou, but I think it's still under question exactly how much of a reformer or moderate or progressive, whatever word you want to use. And it's particularly because one of my benchmarks is always, do you repudiate Sharia? Both him and MPAC, the organization he works for, I haven't found any statement from them, either individually him on his channel or this organization, that does that. Now, maybe there is somewhere, I don't know. I haven't looked at every little detail, but because I can't find a clear statement on that, again, I would still have concerns about exactly how moderate he is and whether he is just trying to portray an image of being moderate. This next bit is a clip where he is, one of his videos where he's reviewing David Wood. And again, it's on the issue of child marriage. And there's two bits I want to show you here, because the first bit is, again, this kind of this apologism for child marriage, which he sneaks in. And then there's also a second bit that I want to cover. So let's watch the first.
Recently published an article for New Lines magazine on the age of Aisha, in which I covered the recent Oxford dissertation by Dr. Joshua Little.
So that's the same guy that was in the first clip. And yeah, you probably know his name because both David Wood and Kenny Bomer was quoting him a lot on the debate they had recently on the Modern Day Debate channel.
Which he spent 4 years of his life analyzing these reports and determined that they are not historically reliable. And he concludes that Aisha was not 6 or 9 years old when she got engaged and married, and that this is a fabrication of a later century.
Yeah, that's fine, but it's the problematic bit is this second part.
So there's no historical truth to the claims that David Wood is making. The other thing is that even if we take these reports, David Wood is now being deceitful by claiming that the Aisha would have been prepubescent when the marriage was consummated. In fact, what the tradition is showing is that she supposedly got engaged when she was 6, and they waited till she was 9 years old because that's when she went through puberty. That is, she started menstruating.
Right. So basically, he's gone back to a very standard orthodox apologetic to say, well, it was all right because she started menstruating at the age of 9. So what's your problem? So again, it's quite disturbing. He wants to promote the idea that Aisha wasn't married as a child, but just in case she is, he's still going to say, well, you know, she started menstruating, so, you know, is it really a problem? And it kind of gets a bit worse.
Now, I understand that there could be some debate about, you know, as soon as you menstruate, are you really past puberty?
Well, there's no debate. Of course you're not past puberty. It's the beginning stage of puberty.
It's a part of puberty, but the point is that the tradition itself portrays it that no, she is no longer a child, and that she is now entering into that next stage in which marriage is acceptable. I mean, marriage is acceptable, and this was acceptable according to all pre-modern societies. So,
yeah, well, so what? It doesn't. What does it matter what other society? I mean, I would even question that in itself, and that yes, child marriage did go on in other places, but to say that this was like the standard and acceptable in all societies, I don't think that's historically true.
Even though this event did not take place, there's still no blame, because this is even if this is a literary fiction, as it is, there's no blame because there was nothing blameworthy in the pre-modern period for doing.
So you see that so again, he's having his cake and eating it. He's basically saying that even if it turns out that Muhammad did marry a 6-year-old and essentially rape her at 9, that's okay because it's pre-modern, so there's no condemnation needed here. Now, I would say yes, you can look at it from the point of view of, yeah, okay, are you judging it by today's moral standards or not? But that's not where he's coming from, because while I don't think he would advocate for child marriage today, he will still put Muhammad up as the figurehead, the moral source to follow. So therefore, him saying that it's okay, that there's no blame there because society says so. Sorry, that doesn't work if this is supposed to be the messenger for all time with the morality for all time. That doesn't work. So again, he's trying to have his cake and eat it. And I find that a bit suspect. The last bit I want to show you also, just to me, again, draws up a concern about how moderate this guy is, because he argues with something David Wood says now, just like any Dawa apologist, a Muhammad Hijab or a Ali Dawa, any of these people, he sounds exactly like them in this next clip.
All societies did it across the board.
And in Sahih Muslim, when Aisha wants to point out that when she's taken to Muhammad's house so that he could consummate the marriage with her, when she says, and I brought my dolls with me, right, she's still playing with dolls, meaning she's still prepubescent. She hadn't reached puberty. So anyway, this is something that bothers a lot of people in the world.
As they should.
Yeah, because we picture a man who was over 50 years old at the time, climbing on top of a girl who hadn't reached puberty, too young for a bra, playing with dolls, was playing on a swing when they went to get her, and him climbing on top of her and completely stealing her innocence. And, you know, the story doesn't end there. So he spends, you know.
Oh yeah, what about in the Bible where is it Moses and Joshua who talk about taking sex slaves of young girls? It says to save all of the women, save all of the young girls who have not been touched by a man, save them for yourselves. So it says to slaughter everyone and keep the young girls for yourself. How about that? That's in your Bible. What do you think about that, David Wood? Will you throw that out the window?
So he's literally doing whataboutism there and thinking that somehow deflects the criticism of Muhammad having a child bride by pointing to something in the Bible. So again, this is really worrying. Either this is a moral issue or it's not. There's no good in pointing to somebody else's religion and saying, yeah, but you've got some bad stuff in yours. So therefore, we've got nothing to we've got nothing to defend here. I mean, that's absolute nonsense. And again, this is the kind of apologetic that you will get from every Dawa clown. So again, it brings a kind of, it brings a caution to me anyway with this guy.
As well.
Now, just in case anyone thinks, oh, you're nitpicking, oh, you're demonizing, that kind of thing. I did actually a month ago when I first saw that this debate was happening, I put this message up, and I think I did it on 2 of his videos. Being completely honest about what I thought about him. So I said, I'm a strong critic of your religion and a popular online Dawa apologist who spread what I see as the worst version of it. I am skeptical of how moderate you present yourself to be, but I respect the fact that you are going to be debating Daniel Haqiqatjou. So I go on to say, look, do you want to come on, have a discussion? Because I would be interested in seeing the difference between your position and the typical kind of Salafist Dawa apologist that we get online. Okay, so I've been completely upfront with this guy. I've said I'm skeptical of how moderate he is, but I would like to talk about it because I see he did talk to Harris Sultan, another conversation which was an absolute disaster. But I thought, I don't know for sure, so I want to give this guy the opportunity. Now, I'm not saying that he owes me anything or he needs to take it up. And he just for the record, I got no response from him both times I posted it on 2 different videos. But as I say, I'm not saying he owes me a conversation or anything like that, but I'm just pointing out that I'm not trying to demonize him, and I would have loved to have a conversation with him to clarify the position. So yeah, I'm just sort of showing I'm not trying to be unfair to the guy. Anyway, so the last bit I want to do is, this is for a bit of fun, to go through the 5 predictions that I've made for this debate. Right, so prediction 1 is that Javid will say Islamophobia at least once every 3 minutes of his talk. Okay, so either Islamophobia or Islamophobes or Islamophobic, any of those kind of deviations, he will say at least once every 3 minutes. Now, I'm going to leave a link at the end of this video to that previous conversation he did with the atheist Dr. Josh Little, because I did a little compilation of how many times they said Islamophobia in their conversation, and it worked out once every 90 seconds between the 2 of them. Javid loves this word so much. So I'm predicting he's going to say it at least every 3 minutes of his talk. All right. I'm not including any Q&A section in that. Just the initial talk plus the back and forth between him and Daniel. So that's prediction 1. Right. So prediction 2. Javid will also quote or name drop Joshua Little at least 10 times. Now, this is the guy who has studied the Aisha Hadith and says that it's a fabrication. He's going to drop his name at least 10 times in this. It has to be done because he seems to be obsessed with him. Prediction 3, Daniel will takfir Javid at least 5 times in this debate. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does it at least 10 times, to be honest. But I'll say 5 or more times he's going to excommunicate Javid from the religion. Prediction 4, Daniel will say Javid is bowing to liberal Westerners 8 or more times. So yeah, there'll be at least 8 references to him being like the slave of liberal Westerners, or betraying the Islamic tradition for these evil liberals. This kind of thing. That's going to happen at least 8 times. And finally, this will descend into a shouting match at least 7 times that will require moderation. I think this is going to be an absolute crazy debate, which is I'm a little bit sad to be missing it live, but I think if you saw the conversation between Javid and Harris Sultan, that was just an absolute shit show. So I think it's going to descend into a shout match, and it's going to be even worse because Javid is going to be really upset that Daniel is just showing the absolute worst possible side of Islam. So he's going to be really defensive, and I reckon it will descend into a shouting match at least 7 times that require moderation. So those are my 5 predictions. I hope that information is helpful for anyone that's actually going to watch the debate. As I said, I'm not trying to demonize Javid, but I just think this idea that you've got like the lunatic Daniel on one side who's representing this really horrible side of Islam, and then this really wonderful moderate guy. I don't know how true that is. He's certainly different from Daniel, but how far towards sanity he's gone, I would still question it. Anyways, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see how my predictions got on at some point later in the weekend, I suppose. If anyone wants to leave comments telling me how badly or how well I did, if you've watched the debate, then please feel free, because I'll have a laugh reading them. But I'll do some analysis from Sunday onwards.